welcome back to Steve Robb Reviews. Today, special vid. It's the least controversial vid I have ever made on my other channel, Steve Robb Report. And I'm going to show this vid today. I thought it was kind of funny. I got a little bit of sarcasm in my sense of humor. And I just thought I'd show you this video. If you haven't seen Steve Robb Report and you're interested in political videos, where I cast my views in a much different way than you'll see on other channels or in the media, watching the television or anything else. I like to bring up kind of quirky things that I find interesting in the media and in politics. So take a look at this video coming up, and if you'd like to take a look at Steve Robb Report, I'll put a link down below. You can check that out too. Cheers. Well, welcome back to Steve Robb Report. Today is going to be quite an interesting video, and I'm going to be talking about a subject I have no clue what it's about. This is probably one of the hardest subjects that I could try and figure out, and you know what? I really don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure this subject out, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I just thought it was amazing and fascinating how political correctness and I guess making adjustments throughout society, I think, have gone really amok, because this is a very confusing subject, and I wonder how many of you are going to understand this subject too. Well, it all started last month. My mother was 90 years old. We had to go to Service Ontario, and that's where you get all your documentation for like your health card, your driver's license, and this kind of stuff. So she had to go in and get a new health card. So we go up to the wicket, and there's a whole line of wickets, maybe 30 wickets along, and every person is standing in front, you know, trying to get their new driver's license and or health card. And so I go up there with my mother, and she's quite hard of hearing, and gives her old health card to the woman, and the woman looks at my mother and says, "Is it okay with you if I call you by your name?" And my mother looks at me and says, "What other name does she want to call me by?" And I knew all about this, because in Canada, if you call the government or any big agency, they can tell what your name is when you call in. You know, if you have an association with them or anything, especially the government, they'll ask, you know, your name, postal code, and your address to verify who you are. And then they always say, "Is it okay if I call you by your name?" And I thought that was strange at first, but yeah, apparently there's a lot of people who might have a name, say, of John Smith, but they don't want to be called John. They want to be called Bluebell or Rocky or you know, Biff or you know, Nancy. You could be called any name you want, and they'll put it down in their file, so that when you call back next time and your name is John Smith, they're going to call you Nancy or Biff or, you know, whatever name that you want. And I thought that was real cute. And so I thought, okay, Mom, they just want to know, you know, if it's okay to call you by your first name. So she says, yeah, okay. So she's filling out the forms, and I'm talking to the woman there a bit. And I said, you know, that's very confusing when people come up and, you know, she goes, well, it's part of our job. We have to ask now for accommodations to people who don't want to be called by their first name. And I said, well, what's the sense of having a first name if you don't want to be called by it? And she goes, well, a lot of people take offense to being called by their first name, or they'd rather be called by a name they associate themselves with better. And I'm going, oh my, what is going on this planet? So then she starts telling me about it applies to the different sexes as well. And I'm going, okay, like, how does that work? Well, you can be a male, a female, or other. And I'm going, okay, I spent a lot of time on the farm, and the only thing I know is male and female, and that's pretty well it. And that's all I've ever seen on a driver's license is male and female. But I'm going to show you this piece of paper right here. This is right off of the Ontario government website. I imagine it's right across the country. I have no idea. It'd be interesting to find out in the comments if any of you guys living in your country have run across this before. let's take a look at this. Let's just take a look at this right here. And this all started on May the 1st, 2017. I had no idea this even existed, but I had to look it up. Okay, so sex will be collected and used when it is required to deliver, monitor, or improve the product or service. Okay, so now we're going to get down to where we got all the highlighted parts. When gender identity information is displayed on an ID, now this is like I said, it's all health cards and driver's licenses and everything else. So this would be universal right across the whole system and put into the database. Customers will have the option to choose male, female, or. Now we get down to this X here, which includes trans, so I'm assuming that's transgender, non-binary, two-spirit, and binary people. And also the X applies here, and people who don't want to disclose their gender identity. Okay, so what do you think of that? Like, what do you think of that? So you got, male, female, and X. And then we got we got trans. Okay, most people know maybe transgender, that kind of stuff. Okay, but non-binary and binary. Do we have robots in society now? I don't know what this non-binary and binary is. And then you have the third classification where you have an X for non-disclosure. You just don't want to tell the government what sex you are. And this is so ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. And this just doesn't make logic sense to me. But this is the society we're living in, where they have more accommodations for things that, you just really don't need this. And I mean, how many people actually look at a piece of documentation that you have and can't figure out what's going on? So I'm going to show a couple examples here that just don't make sense, and why this, I think, it's gone haywire. This doesn't make sense to me at all. Okay, so take for instance, you're lost in the woods, or they put out an APB on a missing person, or, like somebody has been lost or missing for so much time. Are they going to say, we're looking for a 60-year-old male, female, or are they going to say, we're looking for roughly a 60-year-old non-binary person or a binary person, or we're looking for a 60-year-old person and you can't say what sex they are because they don't want anybody to know what sex they are? And in Canada, if you put down any of these things, the police will go by this too. Because, they have to go by the rules of the land. And if you got down there an X, you're non-binary or binary, or you just don't want nobody to know, well, how do they put out an APB on this kind of stuff for a missing person? You're lost in the woods and this kind of stuff. Or you're pulled over by a police officer. And he runs your plate and he looks up and he sees an X. He goes up front, says, can I have your driver's license and insurance, please? He doesn't know what to call you, because he's not going to say, good morning, sir, or good morning, ma'am, or, this kind of stuff. It's going to say non-binary or binary or an X, which means nothing. So if he's got some big dude sitting behind the seat there, and you say, good day, sir. Well, that's it. He's offended right off the deep end there, because he's actually a non-binary. And maybe you get offended for being a non-binary, or I have no idea. But there's more qualifications to all of this, and you have to actually get a doctor's note to have a change. But it does stipulate in the on the Ontario website that you don't have to have any operations. You just need a doctor certificate to say that you're picking one of these sexes or no sexes, and that's just the way she goes. And I'm going, come on, are you kidding me? Okay, So then I had to go over, and another example is look at the Employment Equity Act in Ontario. Now this pretty much applies across the whole country, and this is if you're looking for a government job. Well, right on the website, they do target women, people with disabilities, Aboriginal people, and visible minorities. Now I know all of them except what the visual minorities are. Maybe some of these things fall under visual minorities. I'm not exactly sure I couldn't tell you the truth what the qualification is for a visible minority. But guys, have you ever heard of anything like this before? I mean, when I ran across this and I had to look up a little bit, I thought, what kind of a society are we living in when they try to make things better but confuse everybody trying to do it? Maybe it's because of my age. Maybe because, you know, I'm not really, you know, in this scene of knowing about all these kind of things. Maybe this is perfectly normal for all of you in different parts of the world, but for me, I think it's just wacko, and that's the way she goes.